Well, hi there. Warm welcome. You're watching Blueprint Explosive Exclusive, and I'm Meghna Deka. Now, viewers, like it or not, we are all living in the age of artificial intelligence, and it is not going anywhere. In a click of a button, we can find answers to every question. Just like that. It's that simple. For many of us, the advancement of artificial intelligence has made lives much simpler, much more convenient. But today we will show you how over-dependence on AI can make your brains rot. And it's not us saying it. It is actually a research study from MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which has recently conducted in the United States to understand what can happen when one uses AI tools such as ChatGPT as compared to using your own minds. And students were made to undergo a simple task. So all the people were brought together. They were asked to write an essay. Let's tell you how it was done. So they were conducting this research, and it was conducted by the MIT Media Lab, which is in the Wesley College of Mass Art. The objective of this research was to understand how AI affects crucial thinking, to figure out if AI affects our learning abilities, especially in the students. Remember, the focus was students. So the number of participants here were 54. All 54 were students in the younger age groups, and they were part of this study group. So the groups were divided in three parts. The first group that they divided these 54 students into were the ones who were asked to use AI like ChatGPT to write essays. Then there was the second group. This group was specifically told that they have to use search engines, for example, Google, to write their own essays. Then there was a third group. The third group wrote essays using their own brains. Got it? So first one, only ChatGPT and similar apps. Second one, wrote essays using only Google. Third one, wrote essays depending on their own minds, their brain and recall value. So bi-human teachers were the ones who were evaluating them. They were the AI judges in this entire study. So the results of the study was based on these three parameters, which is brain management, which is memory and ownership, and essay quality versus cognitive depth of these essays. And as expected, artificial intelligence was behind when it comes to human brain on most of the fronts. Let's tell you, what were the findings of this MIT study? Well, there you have it on your screens. They found that the weakest amount of engagement of the brain was with the group which was using ChatGPT. The second finding was that those who were using ChatGPT, they struggled to summarize or even recall the essay. Within 10 minutes, they couldn't recall what they had read or written. Third finding, that essays were lacking depth and originality as compared to those who were using either Google or their own minds. Fourth finding was that the essay had better structure and grammar. This is for those who were using ChatGPT. They had better structure, they had better grammar, but they had, when it came to originality, when it came to creativity, they didn't score as much. In fact, just to show you the extent of how dangerous it is to completely rely on artificial intelligence for tools, especially when it comes to your work, when it comes to your study, let's show you a data after session 1 of the essay. We are putting it up on your screens. Those who were using ChatGPT had 83%. 83% of activity was there on the brain. But when it came to those who were using 11, it came down substantially. That was 11%. Those using their brain showed activity of 11%. So this is the study amongst 54 participants. Now let's tell you, whether you accept it or not, AI is here to stay, and it will be part of your lives for years and years to come. But just like everything else, there are also pros and cons which are involved. What are the pros? Well, we all know. It improves efficiency. It really manifold increases productivity as well. But here are the cons. It makes our brains lazy. We use our brains less. We remember far less. We are far less connected to work if we are using ChatGPT as compared to using our own brains. And it is not just for study or for work purposes that people are using ChatGPT or any of the other AI tools. There is in fact a growing trend, which is especially amongst youngsters, to use chatbots as a medium of friendship as well. Yes, that's right. They use chatbots to make friends. Not human intelligence, but chatbots. Well, a Danish study had found that around 1,600 school students participated in 14.6% and used it for friend-like conversations. And 2.4% of these students sought emotional and social support from chatbots. Let's tell you about the UK study. Around 300 adults participated in it. In this, they found that 73% of these adults believe that AI can reduce loneliness. Then there is also a MasterCard report, which says that over 100 million people interact with chatbots, and there are less social people who are likely to build emotional bonds with these chatbots as opposed to those who have a big social life. So the reliance increases on chatbots if there is less of a social life. But it's not, as we were discussing, just about the students or the younger generation which feels the pinch of AI. We, the working professionals, of course, also have to be wary of the threat. And there have been so many instances. Just to remind you of a few of them. Remember, IBM, it had laid off 8,000 employees. The staff was replaced with AI. Amazon of Jeff Bezos, 27,000 people laid off since 2022. And the CEO confirmed that it was AI which was replacing these humans to reduce the workforce. So more of AI, less of workers. When you look at Microsoft as well, it's mulling to cut thousands of jobs worldwide. Huge investments are now being made into AI as well. So is AI going to be a boon or a bane? That's the question. Let me go across to Rahul Bajaj, the CEO of Digital Darwin, who's joining us. We're also being joined by Professor and Dr. Sudhir Kumar. He's a senior consultant, a neurologist, and Institute of Neurosciences at the Apollo Hospitals at Jubilee Hills of Hyderabad. Dr. Sudhir Kumar, I'm going to come to you first because we are going to put out some of these brain scans which have been done as part of the MIT research group. You must explain to us activity. You must explain to us alpha, theta and delta bands that they are specifically talking about. What are these three bands and what was the performance of these three bunches of students? One which used only AI, one which used only search engines like Google, and one which only relied on their brain.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a very important and timely topic because today ChatGPT and other AI models are being used frequently, and almost every aspect, every profession, it is being used. Now, coming back to this study, it clearly showed that students who utilize ChatGPT to write their essays, and at the same time they have used EEG. So EEG is basically electroencephalography, which is a method to study the electrical waves of the brain. So when we study brain functions, we use EEG is very easy to perform because we have fixed electrodes can be placed on the scalp and different parts of brain activity can be studied. So we routinely use EEG to detect diseases like epilepsy, but we can also study the brain activity in a person who's awake and see how much of brain is active. And the brain waves that we get on the computer, or we can take a printout. So they're based on the frequency, the waves are classified into alpha, beta, theta, delta. So these are the four different forms of waves. And typically the alpha waves, which are in an active and adult or active person, it is the frontal waves will come from the alpha waves will be in the frontal region, and then as we go backwards in the parietal, temporal, and occipital, it will be more slower waves. So they are the theta and delta waves. So basically, what this study shows, and so, as we know that different parts of brain is engaged in different activities. So frontal region we mostly utilize for critical thinking, reasoning, analysis, and then occipital lobes, the back of the brain, we use for visual processing. So when we are given certain things and we are looking at something, so there this back of the brain gets more active. And to reinforce in the memory storage, again we have temporal lobes. So by placing the electrodes at different parts of the brain and analyzing them, we can make out which functions the students are using in this study. And as they clearly showed, so students who utilize ChatGPT, most parts of the brain were inactive. It was like almost passive learning. And then more and more they utilized that. So subsequently it became more lazy. It is not that the brain cannot be used, but just that you are not using the brain. So this is only the short-term study. They clearly mentioned that it's a short-term study. Whether this will have a long-term impact on the brain functions is yet to be studied. But our guess, any calculated guess, is that if we don't use the brain for extended periods of time, especially in a child, somebody whose brain is still growing, say, preschool kids or, younger kids, if they don't use brain at all, and then finally, if they're put in a situation where there is no chat GPT, there is no AI, can they perform? Obviously, they cannot perform, but that is yet to be studied. That was not part of this study.
Oh, that's very interesting. So essentially, it's like, just to simplify it, let me know if I'm right or wrong, Dr. Kumar. It's like saying, I have legs which I can use, but I will use a wheelchair and I will not get up from the wheelchair. I will only use a wheelchair. What happens to me after 2 years? Will I still be able to use that, use my legs or not? Even though there is nothing, technically speaking, medically or biologically wrong with them. Just to simplify, I guess. Rahul Bajaj, this is an interesting conversation which is coming in. But of course, people like you have been at the forefront of the digital innovation as well. Many people say that digital is an antonym of being innovative. Is that right? Can it actually help us improve innovation, or is there limited scope that we can use things like chatbots, things like artificial intelligence to increase productivity plus innovation both?
Thank you so much, Meghna, and good evening to Dr. Kumar. Well, as you mentioned in your introduction, that are you looking at completely relying on AI? Or are you relying it to an extent, right? That is what it will make it will be seen as a boon or a bane, right? Because and wonderful example that you just mentioned, that if I'm using wheelchair now, if I also take it a bit further and I say that if I'm using an elevator. Right. And I say that while using the elevator, the only thing that I could exercise was my finger when I pressed the button, and my leg muscles were never activated, though I can use them, right? But is elevator going out of business? Are we not using elevator? We are gonna use them.
Fair enough.
Right? So it could be a boon, it could be a bane, but it all depends on how you're using it. If the students start using them, then of course their creativity on the language part would go down. And that is also one reason why most of the educational institutes, especially in India, they do not allow calculators to be used for students, right?
Yes.
In fact, even till not only 10+2, but even when you go into the STEM colleges, there is a restriction on how much calculators you could use, because the mathematics part of the brain has to be activated. But should we not be using calculators? We definitely have to, because accountants do need calculators. Without that, they'll never be able to maintain the books today, right? Similarly, ChatGPT is very much required. The language models are required for future development, but how we use it is important. In fact, MIT itself is working on another project called SEAL, which is self-learning language models. It is going beyond the GPTs of the world, where the GPT learns on its own by creating its own data.
Okay. So that's very interesting. That's another study that we are going to be watching out for MIT. We'll have to see these LLMs. Of course, every day we hear about new research which has happened. But Dr. Sudhir Kumar, this is an important bit, and this is something that even he's mentioned, he's picked upon, that it is also the social use that we have seen of chatbots, such as ChatGPT as well. Many people are turning towards them for advice. There are those, I believe, who are even taking professional and personal advice. But interestingly, this MIT study has said that the more users are spending their time speaking to ChatGPT, the lonelier they seem to be feeling. Can you explain that to us? Why?
Yes, you're spot on, and it's absolutely correct. See, earlier we had this Facebooks and other social media platforms and Instagrams. You'll have thousands of friends, but we know people who have thousands of friends, but they are lonely, because virtual friendship is not the real friendship. In a reality, if you have one good friend, that makes a lot of difference. So because it is not only, so this machine can respond verbally, we can read, But there is a lot of difference when we have a real person in front of us. That is called as human touch. Human touch cannot be replaced by any kind of AI, and that's what happens. So and as a doctor, when we see patients, so many patients can get their queries resolved on the AI also. They can get the correct answers, but listening it from an expert, from a doctor, and then the empathy, human emotions, and human touch. So that always makes a difference. So we should not feel surprised when people interact on the chatbots and they say they are lonely, because that human touch is lacking. So if somebody is upset, if we just place our hands on their shoulder, it's a big relief. And if that person happens to be a family member or a friend whom they love or respect, that makes a real big difference. If the same person responds on the chatbot or on the WhatsApp, it can make a difference. But from a stranger whom we have not met, not seen, it doesn't make a difference at all. And that can always vary. And sometimes the similar kind of responses may come because that person doesn't understand you completely, what kind of problems you're facing.
Right.
So definitely, it's correct. And we have seen people who had millions of followers also committing suicide. So it's not that somebody was very popular on social media and feeling happy and satisfied. It's not correct.
And that's a very interesting point that you've raised. You're absolutely right. Just because you have several followers does not get you happiness. And we've seen so many examples the same way that a human touch, perhaps a human connection, cannot be replaced by a chatbot. But Rahul Bajaj, there's something that you also touched upon it. And of course, Dr. Kumar also spoke about it. When it comes to children, especially when it comes to children, should we restrict the amount of artificial intelligence that they should be allowed? You rightly talked about accountants. But in the initial years, is that the reason why we restricted the use of calculators, for example, in class 8, 9, 10? Otherwise, no one would have learned how to do mental math. And there was so much of emphasis, especially in India, to do that later on you can, of course, go ahead with it. But it is that developing stage that we need to be extra careful about.
No, very much, because unless and until the students start learning the language. Now, of course, the study said that the grammar of the essays that were done by GPT was excellent, or was much better, because it has the knowledge of probably anything and everything that is available on the internet, right? So it also has Shakespearean understanding of English.
Yes.
But if we do not know what exactly grammar is, then we would never be able to neither use it nor will be able to communicate with the others in that particular way. Also, very important part of that particular study was that how much was the recall value, right? So
absolutely, that's an important part.
Right. So the failure to recall was only 11% in the people who had done it by themselves and by search on Google as well. Because when you're searching on Google, it is still you are using a lot of your brain, right? What exactly to search. With GPT, it is doing everything for you. So you would absolutely.
And that's a very important one. To recall, if you use ChatGPT, most of them were unable to do that. As much as I believe 87% of them couldn't recall what they had written just literally 10 minutes back. Anyone who's using their own brains, only 11% of them couldn't possibly recall. Everyone else remembered, because it's coming and originating in your brain. This has been an interesting conversation. Thank you so much, Rahul Bajaj, as well as Dr. Sudhir Kumar, for joining us here on the show with your views and analysis on this. This, of course, isn't the beginning, but definitely not the end of artificial intelligence. But will it be a boon or bane? Well, I believe it really depends on how you want to use it. With that, a short break. Don't go anywhere.